Welcome to the What If It Works podcast. Today, we are talking about how to eat an entire elephant. I mean, not really, but that's the analogy we're going to use. Have you ever heard that question? How do you eat an entire elephant? You eat it one bite at a time. Today, we're going to talk about how you can take elephant-size problems, narrow in on it to find out how to break it into bite-size pieces, and then develop a plan to consistently take action and shift the workplace culture around you so that it is more positive and that people, including yourself, can thrive. I am so excited you are here. Let's get into it. All right. First up, I want to walk you through where the inspiration for this podcast episode came from. And it came from a conversation that I was having with one of my clients. And I asked one of my clients what was one of the big challenges he was having right now. And he gave me this big challenge. So as a coach, I get to hear the challenge and then kind of get curious and ask some questions so that I can fully understand the challenge and we can work through some action steps together. So we've got this great big challenge. I start asking some specific questions, and now all of a sudden the challenge has gotten bigger. And then I'm asking a few more questions, and I'm getting, well, and that happens because of this, and this happens because of that, and that happens because of this other thing. And now all of a sudden, what went from a problem the size of a boulder, we now have a problem the size of an elephant. And the leader that was working through this, it just kept snowballing bigger and bigger and bigger. And so finally I said, hey, instead of trying to tackle this whole problem, let's think of one piece that you could positively affect right now. Like, what is one action that you could take today after we get off the phone that could slowly start to shift this problem so that it is less of a problem? We can eliminate the problem altogether. And so he started thinking about that, and great, now we've got an answer. And I'm like, perfect. We've got one action plan. What's something else that could happen? And as we started to get to number 2, the second step that he could take, he all of a sudden went back to step 1 that he was going to take, that he saw as a solution. And then he was like, wait, if I do that, though, here's more problems that are going to happen. And again, that elephant got bigger and bigger and bigger. So halfway through our call, I was like, hey, let's take a really big deep breath. Let's just take a moment. Where is all of this stemming from? And we had a moment where all of those problems that were listed, all of those big things involved in the elephant, he could narrow it down to one specific situation. And because that one specific situation had not been handled, there were growing all of these other problems because of this one thing. And so today, I want to walk you through how you can take a big problem and just narrow in on what is the initial cause or what's the biggest part of this problem that we could go take care of so that we mitigate some other problems, downsize those, and then we can take that bite and then we can keep attacking the elephant at the same time, right? And so, in this podcast, I'm actually going to suggest that you grab a piece of paper. If you are not driving, of course, go ahead and grab a piece of paper. And I want you to think of a, a big problem happening right now in your workplace culture. Maybe it's communication issues. Maybe it is scheduling. Maybe it is the workflow right now. Maybe the workflow in the spring starts to dip and go down. And so people have gotten lazy, or they're not working as hard, or they're having a lot more side conversations. And in a month or two, that workflow is going to rise back up again, and you're going to need everybody on their best behavior and working to their fullest potential, right? So maybe you're noticing that, and that's been really stressful at work because now you're seeing all these behaviors that you don't want to see when the workload is heavy, right? So I want you to go ahead and write down or think about a big challenging problem that is impacting your workplace culture. And I never do this on a podcast because I think it's weird to have a moment of silence, but I'm literally going to give you a moment of silence to think without me throwing other ideas at you or without me telling you what you should be writing. So go ahead and take 30 seconds, even if you're on the drive. Like what are some challenges you're running into? All right. I want you to write down the challenge kind of big, right? Because this is the elephant we are going to tackle today. And then draw some arrows away from that challenge. What are some of the specifics involved in that bigger issue? What are some things happening because of that challenge? What are some of the things that are maybe breaking down? So I'm going to give you an example. Let's go back to that workflow example, that the workflow is inconsistent. And that is a huge challenge. What is causing that workflow to be inconsistent? So maybe you're going to write an arrow and you're going to write seasonal demand. Maybe you're going to write this then causes, right? So another arrow off of workflow, inconsistent workflow, another another arrow is inconsistent behaviors then, because there's inconsistent workflow. We now have people taking longer breaks or standing around chatting in their work area, right? What's another thing that's happening because of that? Productivity is down. Maybe morale is down because people are bored. They're not in go, go, go mode. And now, because that workflow is inconsistent, they're bored, they're frustrated, they're stressed, they're thinking of other things they could be doing instead of sitting at work right now when the workflow is this small, right? So draw those arrows off of your big challenge. So, what are some things you're seeing and experiencing that you think are maybe the root cause or a reaction to that initial problem? What you're seeing from other people. From there, I want you to draw some more arrows. So now we're going to look at that first problem, right? So we've got the big elephant, which is inconsistent workflow. And then our first arrow was inconsistent behaviors. Okay. Now we're going to take a look at what could we do? You yourself, me and vote, whoever you are, what can you do to help with inconsistent behaviors? And this is what you're going to do for each of those arrows, each of the problems or the root cause that you see happening. What can you do yourself to go handle that situation? Now, some of you might be thinking right now, and there's nothing I can do. I am only a line manager, and my manager above me needs to do this work, or the person above me, or the person above them, or whatever you're thinking. Here's what I'm going to tell you. When you get out that magnifying glass and you investigate what issues are happening, and you investigate down to the root of why is that happening, or what are you seeing because of that problem, and you're investigating what to do, if you are the one who comes up with the action, A, you are more bought in that that action is going to solve some of this problem. B, when you go to that person above you, when you go to that person, two, three people above you, you can say, here's the problem I saw. Here's a solution I moved forward with. Here's the result I saw after that. Now, what leader does not want to hear that out of one of their leaders? That I noticed a problem, I acknowledged it was an issue, I looked at the root cause, and then I started to solve it with my own actions. Now, again, I know some of you are saying, but Anne, there's nothing I can do. I'm going to challenge you on that. I think there is something you can do. When I was working with my client, and he said, there's nothing I can do. I said, well, can you have a conversation with your boss about this challenge? Oh, I already have. Okay. When you've brought the challenge to them, what have they said? And he said, well, they just acknowledged that, yeah, it's a problem and there's nothing we can do about it. And I'm like, okay, do you believe that to be true? And he's like, no, I think we could do this, or we could do this, or we could do this. I'm like, great. So you're already thinking of the solutions. So now I want you to go have the conversation with your boss with those solutions in your back pocket and sharing them clearly and communicating with your boss with, hey, this is a problem I'm noticing. I know I've brought this up to you in the past, but here are a couple solutions I came up with. All right. So on that piece of paper, you've got the elephant. You've got the first row of arrows, if you will, that are smaller bite-sized problems and or the results you're getting because of that big elephant issue, right? From there, you're going to draw an arrow. What are the things you can do that it's not going to solve the whole problem? What is something you could do to start to shift to get a different result? That's what I want you drawing after that second arrow. What is one thing you can do? Maybe it's communicate the problem up the line. Maybe it's reset the expectations with your team. Maybe it is take a look at the schedule and align the schedule to the workflow needs. Maybe it's find other work for your team. Another client that I'm working with, he works in manufacturing, and he said right now production is really low. We don't have a lot to do. And so the guys are cleaning up their areas. They're doing inventory on their tools so that when we ramp back up this summer, everything is in its place and we know what we need. We should have ordered those parts and those tools that we needed. So we are set to go. And I love that came out of some creative thinking instead of, I know you don't have a lot to do, but stop talking around the shop. I know you have a lot to do, but get back to your area, right? Like, are there some tasks that we've been avoiding because of that busy workflow that people could be doing? And reminder, people want to feel valued. And if there is a task that they can do so that they feel valued at work, now might be the time to open that up if you have inconsistent workflow. So if in your elephant problem, one of your arrows was a specific individual, right? I know some of you were like, here's my big issue. And you know what? If Anne would just change her behavior, half this issue would go away. That's okay. Let's investigate that employee. What do they need more of? Maybe what do they need less of? What do they need training on? What is it that makes them behave in the way that you are seeing that is causing the problems? And now when you write that second arrow down and you write down what can you do? Is it showing this person that they're valued? Is it showing them appreciation? Is it building trust? Is it opening communication with them? Right? Take a look at how can you interact with this employee differently to see a different result out of them. So now you've got your list, and I am kind of going fast. You don't have time to fill this out. Maybe you did during that story, but either way, now you're taking a look at the things you can do. And now here is the hard part. It is really easy to make this list. It is really easy to investigate problems. When we take the time to do them, it can be easy. It's really easy to separate yourself and come up with some solutions. What's not easy is executing those solutions. And what I'm here to tell you, and I will stand on this hill forever, is that whatever action you decide you need to go with, you need to do it consistently. So let's say you did have an employee and you realize, man, I don't know that they know they're valued. I mean, I tell them thank you, but I don't really appreciate them that much. I'm going to go appreciate them tomorrow on Thursday, right? Then I really hope you appreciate them on next Monday and the following Wednesday and the Friday after that, because appreciating someone one time is nice, but consistently appreciating them is what builds value in that individual. And so we really need to think about the actions that you said you would take. They need to be consistent. Now, maybe you wrote down that you're going to have a conversation. And you're like, Anne, I can't be consistent with that. Once I have the conversation, the conversation is done. Not quite. There is follow-up around that conversation. There is analysis of the results and then follow up on the conversation again with the results that you are now seeing, right? Or maybe you're not seeing any results and you have to follow up on that conversation and say, man, we tried something new and it didn't work. But that is consistent communication that you can keep working on and keep building value and clear communication with other people, right? Maybe one of the things you wrote down is that you are going to look at the schedule, which is great. You take a look at the schedule, you realize, man, there's some gaps here. I'm going to fix that. Awesome. Don't wait until the workflow breaks down again to look at the schedule. Make it a point to look at the schedule each week. Make a point to be proactive with the schedule each month, whatever it is, but start doing it consistently, because this is how, when we get consistent, we see consistent behaviors out of others. I'm going to say that again. When we as leaders get consistent, that is when we will start seeing consistent behaviors out of others. And let me remind you, it might not be the next day, and it might not be the next week, and it might be 4 months later. But when we can get consistent, build trust, build value, build confidence that you are the leader you say you are on Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday and the following Thursday, right? When you show up consistently in your leadership, you will see the people around you consistently showing up in theirs. And that is what's beautiful about modeling and being a leader, is that other people will become safe in your environment, because when you are consistent, they know the boundary, they know the line, they know what to expect, and they feel comfort and safe in that. And when you are being consistent, you are growing as a leader and you are bringing other people along. You are going to see their potential grow, and you're going to start visibly seeing results out of them. And that is what I love about being a leader, is by you taking action, you are inspiring and motivating actions out of others. And they might surprise themselves at what you are able to pull out of them simply by taking these actions that you wrote down today. I highly encourage you to finish writing on this piece of paper. I don't know about you, but a lot of times when I am doing an activity like this, I get started. I know the problem. I know what's causing the problem. I know what I'm seeing because of the problem. And then I get to the solutions part and I'm like, I don't know what to do for problem one, so I'll just do this later. I don't want you to do that. I want you to take a moment in that uncomfortability, right? Of being like, I don't know what the answer is. That's okay. What's one small thing that you can do to start to see a shift? That's all I'm asking you. One small thing. So go ahead and write that on your list, and then make it a point to put this somewhere at work that you're going to see it, and start consistently taking these actions. Follow up with it. Maybe every time you listen to this podcast, it's a trigger for you to pull that sheet back out, right? Take a look at what you've been doing consistently. Take a moment to analyze the results that are happening because of you taking these consistent actions. Maybe take a moment to think about what didn't change on this list where you said you were going to go all in on these actions, and maybe there's something that's just not shifting, just not changing. That's okay. Refocus, take a breath, and write down another idea of what you can do to start to shift the culture. But this right here is growth. This right here is how we as leaders take accountability for our own actions and kind of take accountability for the results that we're getting. And now I am not here to tell you that you are going to have perfect employees. What I am here to tell you, though, is that when you get consistent in your leadership and people start showing up more consistently for you, you're going to be able to recognize problems even faster. You are going to be able to problem solve those problems even faster because all of the big elephant has been bite-sized pieces have been taken out, right? And you will now be able to see more clearly what is in front of you and what tasks need to take priority. I absolutely love being here with you. I love the growth that I am hearing about from those of you who are sending me messages. I truly, truly appreciate it. I read every single one. I want you to know that I get giddy when I hear that you are having an impact on other people because you took action. Not because you listen to this podcast. Somebody could listen to all 39 episodes of this podcast and not see a change. Why? Because they're the ones who have to take the action to see the change. So just because you listened to this elephant podcast today doesn't mean your big elephant challenge is going to go away. You've got to make this list. You've got to write down the actions that you are going to take, and then you have to act on them. Follow up on them. Be consistent. Make it a habit to do the actions you said you were going to do, and just watch how things start to shift. I think you will be pleasantly surprised. And we are all about creating change over here because what if this works? The big elephant is a lot of stress and a lot of wasted energy and a lot of wasted time, maybe even a lot of wasted money. And that is an elephant size issue. But maybe when you investigate, it's really just a conversation you need to have with one or two people. In this workflow scenario, as I was working with this one client, we were talking about this big elephant problem. It really did. In the end, after all of the conversation, it came down to one person. And this one person is brand new to the job. And when I said, does this individual understand that when they don't do this process in this way, it impacts literally everyone else in the company? And my client said, no, he's pretty new. I bet he has no idea. And I was like, and that is okay because he's new. So the action that my client came up with was he was going to go have a conversation, help this gentleman understand the consequences that go down the line when the process coming out of his work area is not done correctly. And then from there, he was going to work with him on how he could do that process well so that he felt good about it and the next people that work on that project feel good about what's coming to them as well. So this big headache, this big elephant really came down to a new guy who just quite didn't understand how he was involved with the rest of the shop with his job. And so some clarity, some curiosity is going to really go a long way when they can get this fixed within the workflow. What if it works? You take that elephant, you zero in on it, you attack with a couple of consistent actions, and you see a positive result. You see a shift. You feel a shift. Other people come tell you that they are recognizing a shift. That is what can happen when we model taking on problem solving down to a level that comes out with very specific actions. Get others involved too. If the elephant-sized problem involves more people, do this activity with them in a staff meeting, right? In a team meeting. Say, hey, this is a really big issue, and I want us to be thinking about what's causing this and what are some effects we're seeing come out of this big problem. And then ask everyone on your team, what's something you specifically can do to make a shift within this challenge? It is going to be incredible. Thank you for listening. I truly appreciate you. I love hearing your wins. If you have a win, please share it my way. You can find me on Facebook on the Impact to Influence Facebook page. You can find me on Instagram at AnnVote, that's ANNVOTE, or you can send me an email, impact@annvote.com. Like I said, I read every single comment. I get giddy thinking about the change that we are making together by taking action.